Yari, everyone. Hola, hello. Hasta canino, greetings, saludos a todos. Arico Mabu, gracias, thank you for being here. My name is Ra Ruiz Leon, JibaRa Jikotea Ni-aku'no, and I'm going to be your host for tonight. If you have any tech questions along the way, like you get kicked out or you can't see something, hear something, I won't know the answer, but my partner Daseli might be able to help you. You can send her a message directly in the chat, and she can try to help you out with that. Actually, I need to share my screen again with all of you. Let me do that. A ver. Okay, so welcome, Manawa, bienvenidos a todos. What are you going to be seeing tonight, or what is this about? Well, before I do that, before I explain to you what that is, I'm just have my notes here on my phone. For anyone who is like, I think most people here know who Taino people are. But for anyone who like trickled in because they saw this on Instagram or Facebook and they're not really, they just were curious but they're not really sure what this is. Taino people are one of several indigenous groups from the Caribbean. Today we're spread out all over the world. There are Taino people living in many different parts of the world. But this piece of technology, Zoom and social media, keeps us connected, and I feel like that's a real privilege, right, to be able to have this piece of technology. What are you seeing right now on the screen where it says Kiwari Taino Ahuiki'no, Queer Taino Voices, a screening and panel discussion? Well, first, I want to talk a little bit about the language aspect of this title, because when I first put out this flyer, I got questions and people really interested in learning about what this was. So I feel like before I move on, I have to kind of make a little pit stop here and explain this. Kiwari comes from Hiwatahia, and it means rainbow. And we do not currently have like an umbrella term that means like queer or LGBT. A lot of people use Biawasa, which means two-spirit. I personally do not identify as two-spirit. So I was looking for a word that could be sort of an umbrella term where, you know, we can say two-spirit and we can use gay, lesbian, non-binary, trans, just an umbrella term that we can use that is beautiful and positive. And I really love this word, rainbow, Kiwari. And so I'm really happy to see that more and more people are using it. Because what I'm going to explain to you right now, if you're like, well, what is Hiwatahia? Well, first, before I tell you about Hiwatahia, I have to tell you about Hiwayagwa. Hiwayagwa is a nonprofit cultural organization dedicated to the research and rescue of all Taino cultural, linguistic, and spiritual traditions that have continued in the Caribbean. And so Hiwayagwa is a tribe, and it's an organization. Most of you who are here already know that, but just in case anyone is brand new and doesn't know this, in the picture you see Hiwatahia, Hekeshi Taino language reconstruction, and that is a dictionary that was put out recently. But Hiwatahia is actually, as I'm going to read here, is a culmination of years of research. And so that is where the word Kiwari comes from. I'm going to read this on the screen. Similar to other indigenous language revitalization and reconstruction efforts, Hiwatahia Taino is a culmination of years of research, consultations with linguists who study Arawak languages, who study travel, and comes from a lot of passion from Hiwayagwa tribal leaders such as Cacique Jorge Baracutay Esteves and Tucuda Jesse Hurani Marrero, both of whom worked at the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian. And so along with them, today's Hiwatahia language team is made up of Calichi Lamar, Yalsi Quiñones, Rachel Verges, and myself, Ra Ruiz Leon. We hold language classes bi-weekly on Wednesday evenings via Zoom. For anyone who may be interested, feel free to reach out to me about that. So what are we going to be seeing today? Well, this is going to be a screening, as the title described, and a panel discussion. A screening of what? Well, I reached out to several members of the Taino community who are LGBT2S, and I asked them basically to make a video answering a series of questions. So what you're going to be seeing is sort of a compilation of videos of personal narratives. Now, I have edited it down. I wish I could show you each video incomplete, but that would have been like an hour and a half. But I actually really enjoyed sitting here and listening to the videos. And it was hard to cut certain parts out because I think in each video there's so much poetry and there's so much just so much personal wisdom and experience that I think is really valuable. So one day I would love to just show all of the videos incomplete without the cuts. I'm by no means a filmmaker, so this is not going to look like a polished film or anything like that. But I actually really like how it looks. It feels very raw. It feels very just like a draft, and that's what it is. It is a draft. I'm hoping that as more stories and as more people send me videos, we can add to this sort of archive, and we can just keep adding to it. This is going to be sort of part one of that. Who are the people who are part of this, you're going to be seeing today? Well, I'm going to read their bios really quickly for you, just so you know who they are. Abel, I saved it here on my phone. Okay, so we start off with Jeannette Pineda. Actually, you know what? I'll read the bios in the order that you'll see them in the video. And I want to before I read the bios, that after the video is about 30 minutes long. After the video, all of the guests, the featured guests, the panel guests, we're going to have a discussion, a short discussion, where I'm just going to ask them some questions, and then we'll be done. So first we start off with Ikaika Torres. And it says, Ikaika Torres is a jack of all trades, a storyteller, novelist, poet, animator, and filmmaker. With a degree in creative writing and hundreds of hours of studying art in theater, film, and acting, Ikaika loves exploring different mediums of story for personal and collective healing. Ikaika resides in Hawaii, and his family is mixed Boricua and Filipino. If that is correct, Ikaika, I don't know if I added that or if is that correct? Okay, good. So, and Ikaika actually shared with me as well his blog link, and also his business website, which I will put in the chat before we end today. After Ikaika in the video, we'll see Elizabeth Delgado, who is a queer, neurodivergent Taino-Borikua from Lawrence, Massachusetts, and occupied Pennacook lands. Her ancestors are from Guayama, Boriquen, Wepa. Her life purpose is creating socially conscious wellness spaces and teaching effective healing and resilience practices for the empowerment of those experiencing stress and systematic oppression, whether in the workplace, community, or individual setting. Elizabeth is committed to sharing her knowledge, resources, and gifts with the world through the lens of decolonization, community healing, and social justice and liberation. After Elizabeth in the video, you will see Jeannette Pineda Rodriguez, who is an artist and an educator. Her family's from Quisqueya, and Jeannette has actually been living between Quisqueya and New York recently. And Jeannette has been doing really beautiful work, working with like natural dyes and photography and storytelling, which I will get into a little bit later in the discussion. She can explain it much better than I can. And then Cito Bairaniki Mayowankanex Colon is a Taino-Borikua dancer and choreographer. His family roots are mixed and diverse. He dances Afro-Boricua bomba, also known as bomba puertorriqueña, and he teaches it as well. He currently resides in Boston, Massachusetts, homelands of the Pawtucket peoples. So with that said, I am going to show you the video. Again, it'll be about 30 minutes long, and afterwards we will have a panel discussion. So feel free to turn off your cameras and just enjoy listening to their beautiful voices and their beautiful stories.
Usakasakabo, Mabuhay, Aloha Kako, and happy Pride relatives. My name is Ikaika Torres. I am Two-Spirit, Biawaisa, Kamaino Mahukane, and I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for sharing space. Then radical acceptance for me starts with honoring my inner child. I see myself as an adult going to this child who did not receive the love and safety that they deserved. And so I look that child in the eyes and I say, look, you're safe now. Like, it's okay. You can be yourself. What do you want? What do you need? I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be the parent that you never had. And then being that parent, calling in those sacred archetypes of mother and father, and praying for the awakening of the sacred mother and father within me so that I can step into that role. And that safety and love is super healing in it. And really getting quiet and being with my ancestors and the land spirits and just like my spirit team, the spirits that I trust, as my first community, my first alliance, and then being very choosy about the humans that I choose to interact with, that I choose to spend my time with, that I choose to open up to. Having chosen family, really, like, as I allow myself to be celebrated in ways that my blood family, my Christian blood family, just can't, I find myself letting them off the hook for their limitations and seeing that, like, okay, my family's Christian. They can only love me so much because they can only see so much because of who they are in this life. And I want them to accept me. I have to accept them too. And we can coexist in harmony, but my needs are not being met. So in order for me to get those needs met, I have to first honor that, like, that shit sucks and it hurts. And then seeking that out with people that I trust and asking my spirit team to bring those people to me and praying for discernment so I don't have to get hurt or I don't have to end up in some, like, cultish community that is predatory. Yeah, so the more I receive that from chosen family, the more I can accept who my blood family is to me in this life, and receive the gifts that are there, because there are gifts there. So creating more inclusive spaces, I think, starts with education and exposure. So taking the time to recognize the Two-Spirit people in our community, and recognizing the gifts that they have to offer, and then calling on those gifts in community and celebrating those gifts, creating spaces where Two-Spirit people and all the awesomeness of who we are and what we have to bring to the table are celebrated. That will help to restore the sacredness, especially, like, in front of our cis hetero relatives, so they can witness and just be in community with us. Thank you. Have a good one. Aloha.
Hello, mi Aridaluco community. Gracias, Hahom, Arai, Yaceli, for inviting me to share this video. My name is Elizabeth Delgado, and I am currently on the lands of the Pennacook and Pawtucket, which is also known as Lawrence, Massachusetts. And I am a proud, queer, pansexual Taino-Borikua. Huepa, pa que lo sepa. There is such a lack of spaces where we're queer, but most importantly, transgender and non-binary siblings of ours and folks feel safe in, because even amongst the queer community, there are still some transphobia that exists. And so I want to address that specifically, and how can we make more inclusive spaces for our trans siblings and for our non-binary siblings, as well as queer folks. And one of the things that I do in my community is I do an LGBTQ open mic. Is all genders, and it's multi-generational, intergenerational. I think it's important for us to continue having spaces, intentional, safe spaces for us to create community, to create queer and trans community together, and for folks to feel safe to express themselves. And that's what I would like to see more of, is us having more intentional spaces, not having these performative rainbow flag raisings, parades, and all this shit. And really, let's get down back to supporting one another, creating communities of care, spaces that are inclusive for all folks, and to most importantly remember that Pride started as a riot, the Stonewall riots in New York City, mainly led by Black and Latino, Black and Brown and Latino trans women. So we need to also honor these ancestors that have paved the way and fought for us, fought for our rights, that fought for where we are today. But this fight is still, it's still not done, right? Right now, currently in 2022, they are trying to implement more than 200 anti-transgender laws across Turtle Island. And so we need to continue fighting, we need to continue advocating, we need to continue supporting, calling our senators, getting involved to uplift all QT, BIPOC, all queer, all trans, all two-spirited folks, everyone that falls within this paradigm and outside of it too. So, all right, long message. Thank you so much. Un abrazo. Ha home.
What does it mean to radically accept ourselves? I think it means to choose to love yourself in spite of the narrative or lack of narrative sometimes. When we're told that we don't exist, that somehow we aren't true. And I think that's true for both of those identities. When you don't have a model from which to draw from, you make it up. And that acceptance of almost a blank slate, there's freedom in creating. So if you're saying that we never were, so let me show you how we are, we can create ourselves. And I think that's the most beautiful acceptance, because it means that we don't follow anything. We're not following, we're morphing. It isn't static, it is continuous. And I think that's, for me, just radical, that I am malleable, and that I can live within the creation that I make. You know, thinking about the reality of this physical dimension, and how do I navigate, it's difficult for all of us, I believe. I make no assumptions about how someone else feels, but I imagine I'm not alone in feeling like every day I have to figure out what my tools are for that day. And and even with my interactions. And do I even have that? Do I even have that in my box that I can draw from, or is it also something that I then have to create or repurpose in a way? I have my sun in Cancer, and I also have my Venus in Cancer, which just means that I'm like this ball of mush all the time. I'm an incredibly emotional person, and I feel that certainly taints the way that I navigate the world. And so I think that I carry a lot of emotional weight from things and interactions, and even if they're just witnessings of others, I choose to love. I choose to hold all of what might be happening in a moment, which means that that's also the difficult or the negative moments, along with the beauty, because they live together, they coexist, and one can't be without the other. And so I choose to navigate from that place, and I don't want to penalize, though I want to understand. And that's also really difficult to do and to be in practice with. But I'm trying. You know, and con familia, and even amistades, people that are around you, maybe people that have known you for a really long time and aren't comfortable with change. I have to, on one hand, lean in with love and almost like fight with love, even though you're coming from a place of fear of who I am or what I am, because it's unknown to you, because it was erased from you. Considering spaces that need to be cultivated for the nourishment of ourselves and our souls. I think that there's so much work that we have to do in terms of the way that we relate to one another as humans that sometimes that's the part that really overwhelms me. I don't know, it just really weighs how much harm we cause one another because we haven't really truly understood ourselves or our mechanisms and our feelings that arise and where that's coming from, and we bring that into space. And until we actually do really deep, intense work of understanding the way that we communicate, then I feel like these spaces are just holding pain on the surface. You know, I saw like sometimes I lose my words, and I'm a visual person, so I see images in my head, and I saw the image of stagnant water, of like water that has nowhere to move and things just kind of sit on the surface. And you see it a lot when you're hiking in like rivers and ponds. You see the algae that kind of just like marinates on the top, and I felt that image as I was speaking. It's like, then we're just creating space that does that, like, and it's not to say that that isn't needed, right? But then what are we doing really? And so I'm still trying to figure that out as a facilitator, as an educator, as a person who wants to love and be loved. It's like just in the space of friendship, how am I arriving and how am I communicating all of the things that I'm carrying that will impact us on a micro scale before I can even go to a macro scale. And I really wish that we would do that. You know, I'm here on the island now, and it's really painful to be here. There's parts of me that are like so bursting with energy and just gratitude. But then there's a lot of parts of me that's witnessing this kind of violence that happens when we want to create space and we go ahead and create it without having actually understood ourselves. Or it's not even that, I don't even know if we ever truly come to an understanding, but it's like, you know what, I'm here on this journey of trying to, and are you meeting me there? And it could be violent, you know? And I said this anoche during our full moon ceremony with our beautiful Ika, around belonging and how we as humans, since the dawn of us walking on these 2 feet, how we threaten each other with belonging. I mean, that's right, like when we talk about the colonial mindset system, how it spread, how it became, all of it is like about belonging. And we still do it, and we do it in our personal relationships. And so I don't want to threaten people with belonging, so I need to understand how I belong to myself so that I don't do that to someone else. And that's accepting everything about my identity and all of the intersections of it. And in celebration, I'm working on it. I am not the greatest at celebrating myself, and I realize because we were told that we can't even exist. So how do you celebrate that which was told wasn't there? And I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to actually find the frequency of my praise, because I realize that there are certain like verbal affirmations that don't work for me. Like, I'm in awe of people who can do that and who can like really feel it, and it just doesn't work, or it just doesn't feel right, or it doesn't feel true, or I don't believe it. You know, it's almost like there's a part of me that hears myself giving affirmations, and there's the other part of me that's like, habladora coño. And so I was thinking like, whoa, what is fucking praise? What does that look like on the body? And what does that sound like at the most distilled level, which is just vibration and frequency? And maybe there's a frequency that I just have not tapped into that is my praise, and that I need to work on. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, and working with like humming. And it's very similar, or I think it's the exact same concept actually, to what Ika talks about in terms of your soul song. I find myself humming tunes that I repeat over and over again, and I don't know where I've heard it, And I have to remind myself, like, oh baby, this is so beyond this moment. And so maybe there's something in there. But on the more practical level of celebration, I love to dance, and so there's movement for me. Anytime my body's in movement or in water, I feel safe. I feel held. I feel beyond the space that I'm in.
Usakasakabo, Titaino, Da'irile Bairaniki Mayowankanex. Good afternoon, my people. My name is Bairaniki Mayowankanex. I'm from the Borinquen. My pronouns are he, him, they, and I am a bisexual male. Yeah. So basically, I was born out here in Boston, Massachusetts. I was raised in Boston, Massachusetts. It wasn't easy being a man of color. It was actually very, 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 very difficult being like one of the first like gay males out in public. You know, like I got a lot of backlash. I got a lot of discriminatory like things said to me. It was very uncomfortable, but I had to stand my ground. I had to gain my respect as well as give it, but I was paving the way for the younger generations that were behind me to know how to maneuver. Where it was like really hard on us as men, especially as a man, where they're like, you know, like that's not cool. That's not what she's supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be married to a woman in a house and, you know, provide for her and give her all this stuff. And it was so bad that like that was my life for a very long time in my brain. Almost to the point that I was like sabotaging like relationships with men because I felt like it wasn't my life. It wasn't me. I can't do this. I was so embarrassed about being myself. And then I came out the closet. And my family didn't accept it. Of course, my brothers were very like, what, bro? Like, you were just with a female. Yeah, so growing up in that small city toughened my skin. But it was so hurtful that I had to go through that. Seeing the generation now being so free and everybody's like open arms and stuff like that. Like it doesn't really matter. And it's like the sense of jealousy kind of kicks over where I'm like, wow, like I struggled for my whole like 14 to like 25. That's a long time. So yeah, still to this day, like my brothers are like, yeah, I don't care, but don't bring it around me, you know what I mean? So it's like, it kind of breaks my heart because it's like, I'm still kind of ronco about it when I talk about it because it's like, damn, I lived through a lot, like a lot. And most of the fights that I had was with my siblings, like physical fights and everything, because I didn't know how to educate them that it was okay to be that way. But I do identify as a two-spirit. As an LGBTQ member, like I don't deny anything of who I am. It's just every day waking up and looking in that mirror and just being grateful of who you are. Like you gotta love yourself. And it takes a long time to get there because I know you can't do it in the blink of an eye, but I love me. I love me. I love the fact that I can, from Shui, I can be like chill with like so many different groups. The kids love me, the elders love me. You know what I'm saying? I can go with the girls while the brothers over there chilling. I can go with the brothers so the girls can start chilling, you know, like, so it's like just being able to be lenient and flexible and all that stuff. Like that's what it means to me, like in my whole community. Like as an Indigenous man, like I just see it as a spiritual journey for me. Being two-spirit is just like, it's an essence for me. Like I carry the essence of both male and female energies. That's just who I am. Like I think I just accept it. Like I'm just like, there's nothing for me to care about. Because if I accept myself, I don't have to worry about approval for anybody else. When I was able to be an adult and get out of my city and live my own life, there goes all these other brandisms that I'm now facing. You know, like colorism, federal, like prisons, all this stuff. Like it's crazy. But it was really hard. Like I'm a street fighter. My family's from the city. So like you know, like every time I went up to, don't be a punk, you need to back, you know what I'm saying? Put your hands up, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody talks to you, so that's where like all this came out, like ain't nobody gonna talk to me that way, you know what I'm saying? If you don't like my color of my skin, that's your problem. But I had to educate myself just as much as I had to educate people. I mean, it's gonna happen every day because I face it every day, even like with friends, you homophobic, like what's going on? Or like, no, I just don't want you to look so gay, like, you know, stuff like that. Like, that's what I mean. And I noticed that I had to cut a lot of people off. I don't like to mold myself for somebody else and make myself unhappy because it's not fair. Then the person in the mirror is not going to be happy. Again, being a water sign, like you said, I'm able to like go with the tide. So like, girl, I see a shark, I'm going this way. You know, so when it comes to the elders and stuff like that, like I feel them because the community does start shunning you as they're aging to the back. You know what I mean? Like, you're not worthy anymore, you're not cool enough, you're old. No, like, I feel like everybody should be included. Like, no, like, they have paved the way for us. We have to pave the way for the next group. So if we start, like, backing them off or, like, shoving them to the corner, like, they ain't nothing, like, what is our purpose? So I just feel like just being present and being fully heard in the community where, like, you know, you constantly putting blogs out there, letting everybody know, like, it's all inclusive, whether what age it is, it doesn't matter what gender you identify with, what sex you identify with, just come through, you know what I'm saying? Like, have meetings, like, at least once a week with these people, like, you know, find out, because how can I be the bridge for the elder and for the young? But with the elders, it's all about respect and stuff like that, so it's a huge balance. In hiding, I don't want you to be in hiding anymore. Come out, let's meet up at a park, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's have a day of where relay races or kickball or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I don't know, just reaching out to people. Start feeling like, oh, he's not cool enough, you know what I'm saying? He's old as hell, and I'm like, it's just like, now that I'm going that way, how do I connect everybody? So that's like my work right now. How do I become an older and connect the rest of the group? I'm so ready for the next 10 years of my life. You don't understand. Like, I'm happy, so happy.
Hi, this is Ra Ruiz Leon, JibaRa Jikotea Ni-aku'no. I am Taino-Borikua from the south of Boriquén, and I'm currently living on Lenape land in Manhattan, also known as New York City. So I asked members of our community who are Taino and identify as queer, LGBT, non-binary, trans, gay, lesbian, bisexual, however they identify within that queer umbrella, as I like to think of it and call it. I asked them to make videos of themselves talking about, for example, how they celebrate their identity, and also how can we continue to create radically inclusive spaces for ourselves and our community. And the reason that I did that is because I believe that it's important to archive our stories and archive our experiences, because not just for us, right, but also for the next generation, because already out in the world so much whiteness and white supremacy and Christianity and patriarchy, machismo, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia takes up so much space out in the world. As a mixed indigenous person who's queer, who's a woman, I can't get away from it. It's everywhere. No matter where I go, when I turn on my phone, if I'm walking down the street, if I'm at a school teaching, if I'm on the bus or on the train, if I'm wherever I am at, it's there, it's present. It shows up somehow. At every corner, there's a church. And so there's a big cross. There's Christianity and Catholicism right there. And so I think that just as much as these things take up so much space in our lives, in our consciousness, we need to also take up space and make our own space and move things aside to make space for ourselves. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is by archiving our stories and putting them out there for others to see. I encourage all of you to archive your stories, to record your stories, whether that's in writing, in video, in music, in whatever way. There's so many ways. Human beings are extremely creative. We can tap into this infinite creative source that is sort of the source behind all creation, right? It has to do with creativity. This earth that we live on, that we come from, that we are birthed from, is full of creativity. In order for it to be the earth, it's already a creative source. So we can tap into that and try to imagine ways of archiving our stories, but also imagine and envision a different world, a better world, a world where there is no exploitation, there is no oppression, where we can be better people, better to ourselves, to each other, to the earth, and to the animals. That is my deep, deep belief. So I encourage you to try to envision that and to archive your stories and your experiences. Okay, well, I hope that that you really enjoyed that, and that there were parts of that that really resonated with you. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna ask Jaceli to pin all of our featured guests so that we can have our discussion. Thank you for all the comments that you've been giving the speakers in the comments that you've been writing in the chat. I mean, I hope that they read them because I know that they'll appreciate them. So my first question, it's for all of the guest speakers. So for Ikaika, Cito, Jeannette, Elizabeth, and that is, after watching this and listening to all of your narratives and what you shared, was there anything that like really resonated with you or that really touched you that maybe you wanted to like say something about or say thank you, or I don't know, something like that? Feel free to unmute yourselves. The speakers, I mean, the guest speakers.
I believe. Hey everybody, how are you guys?
Hi, Cito.
What's up? What's up? I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of cooking and stuff. So what resonated with me the most and it hit my heart the most was when our sister was talking about the stagnant water. Like, yo, my hands are standing up. Like, it just feels like that. It feels like it's stagnant, and it's like if we don't work to push that stagnant feeling, where are we going? And what is the purpose of what we're doing, like she said? And like, how do we find out, like, so like that part when she said that stagnant water, like we go through the like woods, and like I see that all the time. Even today, I'm looking at the pond across the river from us, and I'm like, damn, that thing is so stagnant. Like, how can I be a force to move that? So how can we be a force to move that stagnance? You know, so it's like that hit me. Yo, sis, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing, Cito.
I can jump in. What Cito said about feeling jealous of the new generation and how they have it a lot easier. I know that it's not easy for them. You know, there's a lot of stuff, but I didn't even recognize that that was there. And so it looks like stagnant water to me, like to not even know that that was there. And so I'm looking at it now and it feels like something that I definitely have to address and heal. So thank you.
Thank you, Ikaika. If there isn't anyone else that wants to add to that,
Yeah,
I have.
I can
Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to just say that one of the themes that I really, by the way, hello everyone, Miari, and also want to acknowledge Cacique that is here, and Darlene, and just so many beautiful, amazing folks that are here from our community, and the panelists. But I want to just say that one of the themes that I really resonated with a lot of our stories was celebrating ourselves, but also this compassion, especially Ikaika, you talked about having the compassion for your family.
you know, which I think a lot of us that really resonated with me, because we know that so many folks within our cultures, right, like the stigmas and the phobias that we have to endure every day, like you were saying, Ra, right? But the compassion for our family is so important. It really resonated with me. And also for ourselves, celebrating ourselves, and what do we want to create from this? Creation, you know, was part of Jeanette's, was part of yours too, Ra. You know, what do we want to create from this space is what I want to ask, right? We have this beautiful space of people here, and I feel like one of the questions you had asked us was, how do we want to create more inclusive spaces? And I think doing something like this, we should continue. And one last thing I'll say is that Cito had said, Bairaniki was us, this generation, us being that bridge between the youth and our elders. And we were even talking about that last week when we were together, is continuing to be that bridge, because so many of our elders have paved the way for us. And we need to continue to honor them and continue to teach our younger, you know, our children the same thing. So I just want to uplift that and being that bridge together.
Thank you, Elizabeth. My next question is for Ikaika. Let me see, I have it here. So Ikaika, I know you're working on a documentary film. And I think I think everyone here would appreciate knowing of this project, because I'm excited about it. You've only told me a little bit about it, and you shared like a little photo recently in your stories on Instagram, and that image was so powerful. So I wanted to ask you if you could tell us a little bit about the film that you're working on, and also about that image. You could describe it for those who didn't see it, and tell us a little bit about behind that image. And because it, like, when I saw it immediately, there was just so much to unpack there, which I think is why you shared it, right? So yeah.
Okay, thank you for asking that question. My film was basically, when I started it, I just wanted to document my transition. I started it when I started questioning my gender, and I just felt like, oh, I'm moving toward a gender reassignment. And so I started documenting it. And then all these questions came up of like, why do I feel this way? And am I going to regret this? I didn't want to. I know, like, there were so many people from the trans community like, just do it, just do it, just do it. And there were so many people from the Christian community like, no, don't do it. And I just felt like I needed a deep dive, like I needed to search. And so it became about learning the truth. So I explored biology. I interviewed my physician. I interviewed my psychologist. And I talked to all kinds of queer folks and trans folks, and I explored like the sociological aspect. I explored the anthropology piece. I spoke to Professor Alfonso from Taino Studies as well, and yeah, it was basically it became a journey of me coming home, and led me here to, you know, community, to family. And that image, so I was at Portland International Airport, and I was just, you know, like everybody else, trying to get on the plane. And after I went through the body scan, an officer approached me and told me that there was something in my pants. So I handed him that little TSA medical card, and it read, "I'm wearing a prosthetic penis." And he was like, okay, we just have to verify that. So they took me in a back room. I had my spouse come with me, and I told her to turn the camera on. And so that was a still of me in the back room with these two officers, both white men. And it was really interesting because I went through that experience thinking that it was okay. And I went through it thinking that, oh, those guys were nice, you know, like they didn't throw a slur at me, and they didn't like they were nice. But then when I after I posted the story, I had a lot of people asking questions, so I actually posted it on my Instagram, and I had 3 people saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you." And someone said like that was an invasion of privacy and dignity, and I didn't even know that. And so that's what hit me. Like, I thought they were nice, but I'm so used to, you know, the degradation that I don't even know sometimes when I'm being violated. So yeah, the film is going to be out really soon. I'm really getting those completion vibes. We expect to screen it in Portland next year, and then after that, I'm really not sure if it's going to be on YouTube or it's going to be on another platform. But if you're interested, on my website, nuedenfilms.com, on the contact us, you can drop your email and you'll get a notification whenever that information comes out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. That was really powerful, Ikaika. Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your film. I think it's going to be wonderful. And I'm going to, before the end, I'm going to share the links that you sent me in the chat for everyone. My next question is for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, as a community member and as a friend of mine, I know that you create a lot of opportunities for people to get together and work through healing, right? That's basically like you said in your bio, that's your life's work. And I wanted to ask you, how do you, in those spaces as a facilitator, create that safety, you know, and that responsibility? What are the things, or sort of like the tangible things that you do where you hold space in a way that you know is going to be responsible? I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think you understand.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Pam. Because I just led a retreat for queer, trans, Black, Indigenous people of color this past weekend up in New Hampshire. And I don't even know how I do it, y'all. The spirit and the ancestors work through me. But no, in all seriousness, I really bring, so in the open mics that I talked about in my video, that's been something that I've been doing in my community maybe for about 6-7 years. We started when the Pulse shooting happened in Florida. That's when we really started doing a lot more for our queer and trans community here in Lawrence, because we have a huge Latino community, one of the biggest Dominican populations in the country, and so many people who are oppressed and keep their sexualities and their identities suppressed. And so we really felt that honoring the Pulse victim and doing our first flag raising, like, really allowed us. We held a open mic afterwards so people could be able to just speak and talk. And most of us know that in our Indigenous ways, you know, talking circles and giving people an opportunity to speak and express themselves is healing in itself. And so that's one of the things that I really love to do, is just to be able to create spaces that folks can feel safe enough. And where I bring that safeness is I bring so much love into the space. I bring my full authentic self. And, you know, it's just amazing how everybody else feels it. And there's no judgment that happens for the most part. Everybody's celebrating everybody else and snapping for everybody. And just really listening, because a lot of us really need these spaces and people are looking for these types of spaces. And so when they have this space to be vulnerable and share what they've been feeling, like, you know, how people say there's that beautifulness and vulnerability, right? And also that community strength, that we also see that we're not alone in our pain. And that when we hear other people's stories, you know, we could also identify with that. And that's how we heal in community. I'm getting emotional. I'm feeling those cancers, y'all. Yeah, and so I usually tell people from the beginning, like, this is a no judgment zone, y'all. You know, like I tell people all the time, you know, this is a no judgment zone. Feel free to share what you want. And a lot of the times, like, no talk back. So people, you know, feel safe enough to say what they want to say. And a lot of the times, you know, And also as a facilitator, sometimes I also just allow the process to happen and not feel that I have to facilitate the whole space, but to allow the group to also facilitate and hold one another. And it happens naturally, you know, where people start hugging each other and, you know, just connecting. And I feel like that's what we need more of, is to create these spaces where we can express ourselves. And yes, also move, Jeannette. I agree, and also move, because we know that trauma lives in our bodies. And so we have to move out that trauma in so many different ways, whether it's through art, through bomba dancing. We have the bomba queen, Darlene, up in here. Shout out to Darlene, right? So Darlene, we did an impromptu bomba dancing at the retreat this weekend, me and Cassandra, because we wanted to also share this ancestral medicine, right? As we talk about being this bridge. And so, yeah, I just feel like bringing in love and this just non-judgment and just the vulnerability and allowing people to just talk and express ourselves, y'all. It starts there. And movement, because sometimes we don't even have the words to even talk sometimes, y'all. You know, but thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Speaking of movement, my next question is for Cito. For you as a dancer, I'm a dancer too, so you know this is something that that I work with too. What are ways within your dance work and also your teaching as a dancer and choreographer? What are ways that you sort of push the boundaries and make space for everything that you are, for your queerness, and also in that process make space for other people who perhaps in the spaces in your classes or wherever you are as a dancer, perhaps also identify as LGBT too?
Hey everybody. Sorry, Elizabeth, thank you. I'm like a mushy. Basically, like, it wasn't easy. Like I said from the beginning when I like interviewed and all that stuff, it wasn't easy paving the way in every which way I could. I mean, starting with my dancing, I started from home. And, you know, mommy taught me how to dance, like, you know, un machito. You know, she seen the little chachi in me. I ain't gonna lie. She seen the little chachi in me here and there. But, you know, like, it was a sense of control that I had over me. And when I brought that to the dance studio, when I brought that to the dance world, it was still hard for me because I was still coming to be. I didn't know if I was going to be hella effeminate or hella masculine. I didn't know whether Beyonce was my queen or I was going to throw it down like DMX, you know, like, so it was like, I was very lost at the beginning of my dancing where I didn't know which way to go. And then I found my voice where I just found Ciara, and I seen her as a hella two-spirited person where she invokes both male and female. Aaliyah does the same thing, you know, like, so all these female artists were my main influences. Shakira does the same thing. Shakira was one of them. Michael Jackson was another, like, so like, I brought all of them in my spirit when I entered the dance world, and I never looked back. I never looked back. I made sure that my students were comfortable. If I see somebody come in where I see a boy be a little more feminine, like, I'll grab a skirt and throw it on so he feels like it's okay to dance with a skirt, Papi. Go ahead, dance with a skirt. If that's what you want to dance with, you go ahead and dance it, because this is a safe space. You're not a maricón in my class. You are who you are in my class. That's how I say it. That's how I always will be. And that's how I walk in everywhere. Yeah, like, even when I met major artists, like, my dance manager was very like, you need to be macho. And when I met them, I was me. I had to be me. Like, why be fake? If I want to get hired for these guys or these women that want to hire me to be their dancer, I have to show them me, because I am not edited and I am not filtered. I'm giving you cutthroat Cito, and that's who I'm coming into ballets with. That's who I'm coming into gracing stages with. Like, so in my teachings, I try to make everybody comfortable. Like, if you feel like you have to be a certain way, drop it. Please come in and please be happy. I want to have a fun time. Dancing is supposed to be liberating. It's not supposed to feel constricted. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're all saying, it's a movement. So if you feel stagnant in that movement, then change it. Shift it in a way that is going to make you feel alive. And that's the purpose of dancing, is making you feel alive. you should feel so exhausted and so well fed. You're so full that you know you did something good. If you leave somewhere, you feel like you ain't ready and you just feel like, then something was up, you know? So like I say, dancing is my life and I teach it to everybody, just be happy. Dancing is movement, like we all gonna keep saying. And it's, listen, I go to Borinquen to feel that movement of bomba, you know what I mean? And I feel it and I get it. Then I bring it all back over here and I spread it. And I spread the seeds of the Borinquen over here. Like, here, take this, because this is what I learned. This is what I am. And it's just energy, y'all. Dancing is just energy. Yeah, I'm good energy, y'all.
The first time that I met Cito, he was dancing in his Taino regalia to bomba. So I couldn't see anything more Boricua than that, right? And there was this fluidity to him, this like technique along with fluidity, and he was mixing the masculine movements, the feminine movements, which, you know, to me, it's kind of ridiculous. It's just movement, right? And I remember turning to my partner, Jaceli, and being like, wow, he's a really good dancer. And then I realized that what I meant by that, it wasn't just that, oh, his technique is so good. Because you can, as a dancer, and I know Cito will agree with this, you can have technique, but if you don't have flavor, that technique falls short and it's just dry, you know, hay nada. So when I realized that when I said that, what I really meant was something in me feels like moved when I watched you dance. It was like you were telling a story, but it was not a story of words. It was like a story of us, of our people. Había un movimiento ancestral, right? There was this ancestral movement, this ancestral voice in your movement, in your body. No llores, Cito, no llores. And I remember I took out my phone to record you because I was like, this is such a special moment. I want to be able to revisit it as many times as possible because I've been waiting to see this. I've been waiting to see someone in their regalia, proud to be Taino, and also using bomba as a medium because that is part of who we are. For those of us who are from Borinquen, right, specifically, although the Quisqueya has its own bomba, and this is something that our elder Ika Mateo talks a lot about in her gathering, which I recommend to everyone. She talks about the bomba that is from Quisqueya, and they're, you know, they're different, but they're not that different. So anyways, I wanted to share that because that was a really special moment for me. And I'm glad that that's how I met you. It's like pierced in my brain, you know?
Thank you. I mean, yes. Go ahead. Sorry, guys.
Go ahead, go get some tissue. My next question is for Jeannette. So my question is for, anyways, my next question for Jeannette. Let me see, I'm looking at my notes here. So from spending time with you, Jeannette, and speaking with you and getting to know you, I've gotten this sense, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I've gotten this sense like you have this discipline when it comes to taking care of yourself. And I wanted to know, is that something that was always there for you? Or was it something that you had to cultivate over time? You know, because you talk a little bit in your video about self, that love for yourself and that care for yourself. And I think that's something that, you know, maybe we all struggle with in different ways as we get older. We're learning to take care of ourselves. We're learning to hold space for ourselves. We're learning to show up for ourselves, which is something that Ikaika talked about too, about sort of being our own parents and seeing that child. And so I wanted to ask you, is that something that you've had to cultivate, or is that something that was always in you?
Hi everyone, I'm so sorry. Se me atrasó mi vuelo and I'm in a car, which it wasn't supposed to be this way. I was supposed to be in a calm spot. So I just wanted to say I'm sorry about my sort of distraction at the moment. But thank you so much for having me and for bringing us together in community. In terms of cultivating a sense of care for the self, that's something I definitely had to learn to do. And it's something that I'm in the process of. I was a caregiver for my mother from such a young age. From the moment that I could recall having a relationship with a parent, it was always me caring for my parent. And so I didn't know how to care for myself, emotionally, mentally, de nada. O sea que yo sé cocinar. I could throw down in the kitchen, tú sabes, because I had to cook for la familia y toda esa cosa, pero di que, how am I doing emotionally? Checking in with oneself? No. And then when my mother passed away, I needed to find an out for that energy, and it turned out to be my students. I just went and replaced my mother with my students. I needed to care for something and continue to ignore the self, because to care for the self meant that I had to look at myself and to contend with a lot of stuff that you don't want to contend with. And it's something that I have to every day choose to do, porque eso se me olvida. O sea, I forget to do that because it's not innate for me. What is innate for me is to care about everybody else's vaina, not to always care for my own, and to choose to care for myself on a daily.
Se cortó.
I'm going to use the word selfish here, but in the most positive light. Like, when are the moments when you are choosing to be so insanely selfish, because that means that you are caring for yourself? And I had to learn that to be selfish is not negative. To be selfish is the only way that I'm going to be able to show up for you. And I hope that's going to work out.
Se te está cortando el audio. Maybe we can hear you.
I see.
There you go. I can hear you now. What was the very last thing you said? Do you want to repeat it?
Yeah, yes, I wanted to sort of change the narrative around the word selfish.
Right.
Because, you know, we're taught that's a negative trait, right? But actually, if I want to show up fully for someone else, I need to show up for myself first. And that means sometimes being selfish. And I had to learn that that's not a negative word for me, that that's not a negative thing, that actually I need to be more selfish in my life. I need to say me more, so that I can then choose you. I hope that you got that.
Yeah. We were able to hear you. I think when you turned off your camera, the audio got better. Yeah.
Perdóname, que estoy en la carretera,
it's okay.
y tú sabes.
Don't worry, it's okay. We're happy that you are here. Thank you, Jeannette, for sharing that. My next question is going to be my last question for the evening, and it's a question for all of you. It has nothing to do with the video. I just wanted to know. I think it's a funny question, and I feel like it'll be a good way for us to end our conversation tonight, which I hope we will revisit again in the future. And that is, what is the best date that you've ever been on? The best date that you've ever been on, or the nicest date that you've ever been on, that comes to your mind right away when I ask you. Cualquiera que quiera empezar, who wants to start.
I know mine is going to be my first date with my spouse. We were in Portland, Oregon, and we went to Hot Spring. And it was nice being outside, being in the woods, being in the hot water.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. ¿Quién más?
So my best dates, I would say, would be 2 years ago mid-pandemic, I said, babe, let's go. He's like, where we going? I'm like, yo, pack a bag, we're leaving. It was my first time ever stepping on Borinquen 2 years ago. And it was beautiful because I do suffer from like a tad bit agoraphobia where I'm like, I'm panic mode. I'm a dancer, yes, I know I'm a dancer, but it does happen. Like social gatherings can scare me, but we went to Puerto Rico and it was like quiet, it was peaceful. I was able to enjoy the island, you know, and that's when I finally got a taste of what bomba was. So that was like my first good date, and I will never forget it. Never.
Nice. Thank you. That's beautiful. Liz, are you still thinking?
I'm gonna chime in here, and I think I know the hot spring that you're talking about. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say any give anything away. But if it's in Mount Hood, I love it. It's one of my favorites. And I've had some incredible encounters in full moons in there. Crazy stuff. Other stories for other days. Pero
this is grown folks hour. So this is grown folks hour, so it's okay.
Let me see. This is a hard question. This is a really hard question because I've been on some really dope dates, but I'm gonna say that one that pops to mind is one of the dates that made me fall in love with New York again. And as someone who grew up in between Quisqueya and Queens, I always preferred the island. Like I would always say, like, I want to go back home, blah, blah, blah. And you know, you want to hate on New York, but I was dating a masked queer Taino from Borinquen, and Eddie Palmieri was playing at Summer Stage. Of course, we never got tickets to see Eddie Palmieri, but you know, it's Summer Stage, so you can post up on a boulder and you can still hear and you can still see. We showed up con vino. We dressed up. Yo all in white. They were dressed all in black. And we didn't plan that, but that's how we showed up. And from a boulder, we got to see and dance to Eddie Palmieri. Y después de eso, de ese concierto, we were walking around Central Park and we hit up one of the like ultimate like funk parties that they have in Central Park, que a lo escondido, but they still have them every Sunday night. And it was the most incredible mixture of people, like, you know, kids on rollerblades and older folk that would show up to do these funk dances. And it was just this like insane gathering that could only happen in New York, in the middle of New York. I just remember like dancing and being like, wow, this is what New York is about. Like, this is it. Like the free shit that happens in the middle of a park that has been going on for decades. You know, that party has been going on for decades, and that I just found it now, you know? And so I'm going to say that that's probably one of the best dates that I've ever been on.
Nice. That's true. New York is good for that. One of my favorite spots is Washington Square Park because I feel like you can go there and there's always so much stuff going on that it's like watching TV. You sit down with a snack and a bottle of water and you just sit there for a few hours watching people watching, and you see so much stuff, some crazy stuff, but it's very entertaining. Very entertaining. And I went to college downtown at the New School University, and so I would spend a lot of time at the park, at Washington Square Park, studying, writing, and not doing much studying or writing because again, the park was just, there's just so much going on all the time that's very distracting. So yeah. Elizabeth, do you want to answer this question or you want to skip?
No, I'll answer real quick, actually, because at first I was like, oh, Lord, I've had really bad luck dating, as you know, that, you know, this past couple years. But it's okay, y'all. It's okay. But anyways, so hearing all your stories, it actually made me think of, it's so funny, a couple of X's ago, me and my ex, we met through movement work, through gender-based violence movement group that I used to run. And supposedly there was this agreement that like we couldn't date each other, you know, until after the season ended, because sometimes we would have all this drama between like the volunteers, y toda esta cosa. So we had this little thing that people couldn't date until after the season was over. So we were like kind of talking, had it on the DL, you know, and so we didn't get to go on a date until after the season was over. We did honor that. Like we didn't go on an official date, but we were, you know, talking, texting, you know, just the vibes are going. So when we finally got a chance to go on our first date, I wanted to make it really special. So she was an artist and she was a huge art lover. So I rented out, I had a pull with the local art exhibit here in Lawrence, because I used to do events there. And I was able to rent out the space and have like a dinner, some wine, little candlelight dinner in the art exhibit. And it was really beautiful. And I asked her to be my girlfriend, like right there, you know, so after the candlelights and everything. So it was really beautiful. She was like, oh shit, how did you pull this? I was like, I got connects, girl. So anyway, that was a really sweet date. I have to say that was probably one of my like the sweetest dates. And yeah, then we just walked around the canals and everything after that. So it was good. Yeah.
So I'm assuming she said yes.
Yes, she did. Yeah. We were together for 4 years, but then, you know, burned out. It's okay. Así es la vida.
Yes.
Honoring her and our love. Yes. But
yes.
That was a good question. I like that.
No, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that you all enjoyed it. I think it was a fun question. I really enjoyed listening to all of your stories. And actually, Ikaika's response about their first date with their partner reminded me that, well, every date with my partner Giseli is super fun. We had a really awesome date yesterday where we went to all these vegan spots in the Lower East Side here in New York, and came back with bags and bags of stuff that we swore we were not going to come back with, like vegan cheese and all these treats and stuff. But I would say our very first date, like you said, Ikaika, our very first date, we met up at this this spot here in El Barrio, which is what we call here Spanish Harlem in Upper Manhattan. We went to this spot called Cassava House, and they had no cassava, no yuca. And we always laugh about that it was like we sat there for like 4 or 5 hours just talking and laughing and stuff like that. But the whole time we were like, it's not like, oh, they didn't have cassava that day. They have no cassava on their menu whatsoever, which makes no sense. It's called Cassava House. So I thought I was going to go to a place that was like specialized in like yuca and yuca fries, which I love. But anyways, we had a good time. We had some veggie burgers. So that was that would probably be my okay, thank you everyone. Aricomabu, gracias for tuning in and listening to all these wonderful people talk and share their stories. My hope and dream and goal is that we will continue these sessions, this series. And I actually do another series called Areto Taino Voices. So there's a pattern there of, you know, sharing Taino voices. And the next Areto Taino Voices, which happens monthly, always in the first weekend of the month, is happening this Sunday, August 7th at 7 p.m. If you want the Zoom link for that, just hit me up and I will send it to you. We're going to have some guest speakers who are going to be talking about some of the things happening on the island in Boriquén and the appropriation of the term Boricua. Lately, we've been noticing all these folks who are not Boricuas calling themselves Boricuas. So we're going to talk more about that. But anyways, thank you so much for being here with us today and being witness to this. Like I said, we hope that this conversation continues, and that more people who from the community who identify as two-spirit, as trans, as queer, gay, lesbian, bisexual, however it is, Biawasa, join in on this conversation and want to archive their stories. So if you know anyone who you think might be interested, please send them my way. I also want to say that all of this work and energy is done free. So if you know of anyone that wants to pay us, who has funding for us, a grant, a residency, a fellowship, whatever, I've been on the hunt for that. So if you're someone who knows about that, hit me up. I need help, and I'll take all the help I can get. But I also want to say that support your Taino, especially your queer Taino artists in the community. You can support by donating to us or to any of these people for their work, or you can support by sharing their work, or staying in touch with them, showing up for their events, asking them, what do you need? I want to support what you do. What do you need from me? How can I help you? There's so many different ways that we can show up for one another. So please do that, and stay in contact. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Ariko Mabu, again, have a wonderful night. Elizabeth, Ikaika, Cito, Jeannette. ¿Cómo? Oh, group pic. Oh, you know what? Jaceli has been taking photos actually. But actually, I don't know, maybe we should do one with everyone who's here. So maybe she can unpin us and we can show it. So
first, let me get the speaker. So everybody smile. 1, 2, 3. Cheese. Okay, then I'll get everyone.
For anyone who doesn't feel comfortable being in the photo, feel free to turn off your camera. But we'll just take a group pic just for our records. Ready?
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Nice. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night. Los quiero mucho. Bye.